This tutorial demonstrating how to use Nmap from the command line as well as the graphical user interface. So the objective of the presentation is showing basic usage. We're going to execute different commands, compare some results. We will also include an example using some of the Nmap NSE scripts. In this particular case, we'll leverage a vulnerability scan. We will go in and not just demonstrate how we can use the NSE scripts, but also we will go ahead and download a new script, append it to our script directory, and launch it from Nmap. For this tutorial, all you need is Kali Linux, as you can see, and a potential target that could be either provided in your environment, or you can select an example Linux or Windows target. The results, of course, may vary, but the commands will be applicable regardless. So let's get things started. I'm going to go back to Kali. A simple way to start Nmap and leverage the command line interface is open up a terminal and then type in Nmap. What we did here, as soon as we typed in Nmap, the help menu came up because we didn't specify any parameters. So at the very basic usage of Nmap, we have, here's an example, Nmap. We have to specify the scan type, the different options for the scan type, and then the target of evaluation. Now, in this case, for the target specification, in this case right here, it gives us examples. So for examples, as an example, we can use a fully qualified domain name like scanme.nmap.org, Microsoft.com, or we can use an IP address, or in this case, we can use a range. Please note that if you launch an Nmap scan against a target evaluation that you don't have permissions for, you may be actually in a gray area when it comes to legality. The reason why I point this out is a lot of the port scans usually are being ignored. Like if I notice that there is a port scan against the system in our environment, a lot of them may be ignored, they may be tracked, they may be blocked automatically, because often it kind of really varies. A lot of the attacks, especially port scans, can be blended with regular traffic. It could be very hard to detect them. Sometimes, if it's a particular test environment, they can be captured. But regardless, if you don't have a permission, I would recommend that you only scan targets that you have control over. For example, in your virtual lab environment, or in your own home setup, as opposed to using an example like Microsoft.com. You just never know if somebody from Microsoft will contact you and point out that you've been scanning their network without authorization. Again, not worth taking a chance. This being said, the host discovery. So the manual for Nmap is broken down into different categories. So for the host discovery, depends on, so if you're trying to discover if a particular host is alive, these are different options you can use. Different scan techniques, so a scan type, this is actually referring right here. So these are different things that you can use. Port specification and scan order, so -P helps to specify a particular port, and it gives you examples. Port 1 through 65535. You can specify -P and U for UDP 53, and then list them. Then you can do comma T for TCP and list some other ports. Okay, and here's some fast examples. You can do top ports, port ratio, and so on. If you're looking to do a service or version detection, so we have a particular application like Apache, and we'd like to discover what version of Apache is actually running, then the -SV option is applicable in this scenario. Going down the list, script scan. So The script scan allows you to leverage additional functionality beyond the port service operating system MAC address identification. You can engage and do things like identifying default passwords, anonymous logins for server like FTP. Perhaps you can go in and enumerate credentials so you can discover vulnerabilities, and you can even leverage Nmap as an exploitation utility via some of the Metasploit modules. Scrolling down the list, if you're looking into particularly doing operating system detection, you can use this option. Timing and performance. With respect to noise and ability to stay rather stealthy and avoid detection, these are different options you can leverage. T0 through 5. So timing template, higher is faster. So what's happening is the higher the number, it seems like the faster the scan, the lower the number, the slower the scan. So in this particular example here, we can set different timeouts in the scan, delay, and so on. If we do -T5, for example, it would take very little time, in this case, the scan perhaps can be not as accurate. Going down the list, we have firewall and IDS evasion and spoofing. So -D is for decoys, so decoy 1, decoy 2. You can list yourself and so on. And basically you're clocking the scan, you're obfuscating where the attack actually is coming from, where the scan is coming from. There's some other examples. You can spoof your MAC address and so on. The output. So with respect to saving results, okay, so there's different lines of thought. There's different formats you can scan. One thing to note is if you're scanning for a large number of hosts, and so one of my tasks was I needed to basically evaluate on a number of occasions the external visibility. So what is visible out to the World Wide Web, or as I call it, Wild Wild West. What's the outside footprint of an organization? Okay, what servers are visible to the world? And in this case, if you do a regular Nmap scan, you can export the results with a simple output to a text. But the results will be listed, in a not necessarily human-readable format. You're going to have several lines of, identification per host. Where if you use the OG format, lesson learned, is basically on the entire scan into single line. And what you can do then is you can get the scan information and basically import it into a CSV file, and then you're going to have host 1 is going to be on cell A1, and it's going to be listed in that same row. You're going to have open ports, operating system, and everything, and it makes it very easy to filter and search. Actually, this specific format is designed for grep. So if you're looking to grep how many systems have port 21 open, this particular format makes it really easy to distinguish. Okay, so there's some miscellaneous scans, and the -A is really one of the most comprehensive, and it does pretty much everything. The disadvantage of this particular scan is the fact that it's really noisy. Okay, you will get all the information that you can possibly get. Is doing OS detection, version detection, script scanning, trace route, pretty much everything you'd need. However, it's very noisy, not the stealthiest. At the very bottom, you can notice a few examples on how to use Nmap. So this, in a nutshell, is getting started with the command line interface. So the manual itself gives you examples of different options that you can use, scan types. It gives you examples on how to leverage them, and that's pretty much in a nutshell. So to compare with the graphical user interface, one way to start the graphical user interface, in particular from Kali, is to type in Nmap from the command line, hit enter. In this case, the interface comes up. Or perhaps you can navigate using the application menu. So navigate to applications, from there Kali Linux. From Kali Linux, one of the areas you can go into is information gathering. And as you noticed, hopefully you've already done this, you've gone through Kali and then you notice that different tools are categorized by subject matter. In this case, information gathering. So what we're trying to do is, for example, we're trying to identify live hosts. From the live host identification, we'll scroll all the way down and left click on Nmap. Now, you may notice that some tools may be listed in multiple areas. So we just came from live host identification, and we notice that Nmap is actually listed at the bottom. Well, if we come into OS fingerprinting, what we can notice is that we also have Nmap. Okay, Nmap can also be started from the application menu, but just different ways. It just depends on your preference. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch Nmap directly from the terminal. One caveat is once you launch Nmap from the terminal, if you go ahead and close the terminal, notice the Nmap disappears. However, if you start Nmap from the application menu, then what's happening is you will have the advantage of using terminal independently. Okay, so we're going back to the information gathering, live host, and if you notice, you can of course use some other utilities that allow you to obtain similar type of information. Unicorn is actually a useful utility. NetDiscover uses a passive discovery of different hosts. Very useful utility if you do not know the IP address for your target of evaluation. So let's go to Nmap. And Nmap, as I mentioned in my previous tutorial, has some canned type of scans. So you already have a pre-configured scan which says this is essentially somewhat aggressive type of scan. Okay, what it's going to do is it's going to have a probe response time of about 1 second, and usually it's going to take about 5 minutes per host for determining that information. What we can do is we can specify a target. In this case, you can just type in localhost, which means it's going to be, evaluating the Kali Linux that we have. Or perhaps we can go in and get the IP address for our target machine. And into the right-hand side here, profile, what we can do is you can select different profiles: intense scan, ping scan, quick scan, regular scan, slow comprehensive. So the slow comprehensive is going to provide a lot of information. Okay, it's very slow, it's very comprehensive. As soon as you select it, all these options change here. Okay, so this is an idea of what actually does, and it does a script scan. Okay, in this case, it uses the default or discovery and save. So by selecting these different scans, you can also leverage the different options and better understand how to compile your own command. And the regular scan is just Nmap localhost, which very quick, but it's not very detailed when it comes to the information that's provided. So we're going to go back to the intense scan, which is the default option, and we're going to do simply scan to initiate. Okay, once the information is completed, you provide a report, a result. What we're going to do while we're waiting for this, for the sake of the presentation, we're going to fire up a terminal, and I would like to show you a different utility. So let's do ifconfig. The reason I'm doing this is trying to get the IP address for my particular host system. Okay, and this is my private network, so 10.10.121. I want to find out what is the IP for my target machine. I'm going to use NetDiscover. As I mentioned, NetDiscover is a utility that allows you to do not just active but also passive discovery of hosts. And the way that it does passive discovery, it's what's happening instead of you going with Nmap and actively probing the target for information. NetDiscover is collecting information available on the network, okay? Each system connected to a network is beaconing different types of information. It could be window size, it could be just generic ping responses. And what's happening is NetDiscover is waiting for that information to come along. It tackles it, collects it, compares it against internal database, and at this point is giving you an idea whether the host is live or not. So what we will do in this case is NetDiscover, and we will specify -i for device. In this case I used, if you remember from the ifconfig command, it was ETH0. Let me actually verify. Yes, so ETH0. So I'm going to initiate NetDiscover. So I can pull up the help menu again, and then NetDiscover -i ETH0. So I'm basically telling it I'm using this interface. In case you have multiple interfaces, it's a good thing to specify your interface. And then I want to tell it a range. So the range that I'm in was 10.10.1, and I'm going to do 124. So what I'm telling it is scan, basically the 254 available addresses. And tell me what else is on the network that my Kali system is connected to. And what it will do is going to find any host that is live. So let's see. It's going to do its scanning. It's going to give me 1822, and it's giving me VMware. So I know that my other target is a VMware. Okay, it's a VMware machine. So now I got the IP address I need to be scanning. What I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to leverage this in a following Nmap scan to see what information is available about this host. Okay. So in this case, what we discovered is essentially, this is the raw scan. This is what you will see exactly in a command line. So if we were to execute nmap -t for aggressive and -v for verbose, and we do localhost, okay, do you see all of this information is exactly the same as we would have, as we see into, the graphical user interface. Okay, so really this information is the same. The difference is that for the command line, we needed to know the command and execute it, and with the graphical user interface, all we had to do is point and click. Okay, so over here, and also we have a different representation of the information. We have these tabular type of view. So these are the different ports and things that are open on our particular host. Okay. Then we have the topology. In this case, we scan only one system. Host details. Okay. So it's giving us information regarding the operating system. In this case, it's not really detecting the exact information. Is detecting the router that is used for this particular lab. So not really accurate. Okay. What's happening is we got a similar type of information from the command line, with the difference is that it's in a different readable format. So if we compare the port host versus the command line, okay, it's really in a different format, okay. Okay, so this was the comparison between Nmap and Nmap. To continue the actual presentation, I'll be actually relying on the command line as opposed to the GUI, but you're welcome to use either. So I'm going to close out. Oh, and something else, the advantage of using the GUI, it allows you to easily save a scan, okay? So you can save multiple scans, you can choose a single one. Here at the bottom you can select the format. You can do an Nmap if you'd like to re-import, or you can use XML format just for the results itself. You can have profiles, create a new one. The beautiful thing is also that you can compare results, and you can search some of the scan results, okay? You can filter hosts, so it gives you a little more functionality than the command line. So each has pros and cons. Okay. So this being said, what we'll do is going to close this out. Okay. And we're going to come here, and you notice that 10.10.1.22 is perhaps the IP address for our target. Okay, so we'll verify this. I know that my target is using Ubuntu. We'll see how accurate that scan is. So let's go back down here and review some of the results. So we initiated essentially a aggressive scan, and what information he provided is the following. During the initial scan, it was a stealth scan, okay? Well, not really, because we're using aggressive, it's very noisy. So we discovered that there's an open port 135 TCP on our local host, and then it gives you the rest of them. So now what we can do is, what's port 135? We go in, we open up Google, and we'll find out that it's tied into basically directory services, okay? Port 22, it's really SSH. We have some POP 5900. It's kind of interesting. So what is 5900? That's most likely WinVNC running. 53, what's interesting about this, it seems like it's DNS. 3389, it's RDP. 21 FTP. 25 SMTP. 8080 is an alternative, basically HTTPS or HTTP, and so on. So a variety of ports. In addition to this, what's happening is we have a script scan, okay? So the OS detection wasn't very accurate. However, what happened here is we discovered that thanks to the additional script scanning and version scanning, we have that port FTP21 is open. We have no banner. SSH seems to be open. SMTP, it seems like connection closed. POP3, MSRPC. So it gives you conflicting information. You wasn't really able to determine what some of this information is and what version. It seems like because of the firewall that's in place for this particular host, the IP tables. So this is discovering essentially a service fingerprint, trying to identify different services, and if you can, it's just going to give you that fingerprint so we can perhaps do additional research. So it's using the TCP IP fingerprint to determine operating system, and is just not really accurate for that particular type. So Read data files, share Nmap, script post scanning. So there's some information we can leverage. Let's give a different example. Let's see what else we can use. Let's look, for example, compare this scan with another scan. Let's do a quick scan of our target. Let's do an aggressive one, or let's do just a SYN scan. Okay, so we are basically requesting a connection, but not really completing it. And let's tell it to do. It looks like I pressed once. Source port 80. Okay. And let's do 10.10.122 and see what happens. What are the results? Okay, so these are the results for my target. Okay, it looks like FTP is open, SSH, Telnet, SMTP, domain, NetBIOS, MySQL, Postgres, and so on. Okay. Now, it gives you a lot of conflicting information. So let's do this. Now we're going to execute a different scan. We're going to execute the same scan, which is aggressive, against the same target and compare the results. So this was just a SYN scan. This is an aggressive scan with -A, which is more thorough, and we'll compare to find out if there's a difference in the results. Again, different scans are going to provide different information. So looking through, let's look and find out what additional information is discovered. So in addition, so you're noticing here, there's a lot more fields. So this is a very clean scan, very quick. This took a little bit longer, but employed a lot more detailed features. Okay, so in addition to the service, it identified the version. Over here we don't have version. So with this particular scan, we discovered that the actual FTP service is Pro FTPD, and this is the actual version. In looking into the right here, TCP/22 SSH, not much information about this. We got OpenSSH 4.7 P1. This type of scan can be helpful if you're looking for quickly verifying if a service is running. This scan here with a -A is very helpful if you're trying to fingerprint a particular application, operating system, and dig into more details. Okay, so each scan has a purpose. Now, if you'd like to do and append a scan for not just this target but for our local host, what we're going to do is, it looks like I failed to have an extra space. It's not supposed to be there. So I can do this particular format, okay? What I can do is leverage 21-22, okay? So if I use localhost is not going to be really recognized. So what I did instead, so localhost by itself will be recognized, but appended with the previous scan the way I have it, it doesn't recognize the result. Okay, it tells me there's no target that's with this IP address in the comma. Okay, so one way to work around this is specify a range. So 10.10.1.21-22 really means this: scan the target with IP 21 and 10.10.1.22. And this is all represented by this -22, okay? So just a different way to provide an example for scanning a target. Okay. Okay, so let's do saving an output. So it's fine and dandy that we have Nmap and provide that information on the screen. However, we would like to perhaps, save this information and output it to a file. Let's just go output.txt. Okay, so using this symbol, it's simply telling it, create a new file and output the standard out to this output.txt file. So what happens then, and of course txt can be CSV or XML or HTML, whatever you decide. So what happens then is the information is going to be automatically appended from the standard out to this file. ls, we're going to do test cat output because we save all that information there. And here's the content of this file. Okay, so we only had 2 examples. We scan only 2 targets, which is fine. But if we have hundreds and hundreds of targets, this particular format can be a little difficult to read. Okay. So what we can do then is, of course, we can append this information and put it into a CSV and have maybe a little bit better filtering. However, there's a different thing we can do. So we can append all of these options, and then somewhere in here we can tell it OG. Okay, so do the same type of scan. The only difference is the output format. We want to make it greppable. Okay. And greppable is really leveraging the grep command to search through particular patterns of strings. So we're going to do this scan. Oh, it looks like I mixed up the command. I'm going to do no targets were specified. Is expecting a target. It looks like we need to append this command OG. Okay, so what I was doing is I was specifying, if you remember the syntax for the command. Okay, so we have nmap scan type that I need to specify because this really is a different scan type with different options and an entire specification. So that I was putting the OG here and it was thinking that was my target. I was putting in the options and it was thinking, what is my route, so it was confused. You really needed to specify the scan type here. So let's review the content of our output file and see how this, how is this different. And it looks like it's not. Okay. Okay, so I spent a little bit of time and I figured out my mistake. What I needed was actually missing was a little dash right there. So I went back to the menu, I relooked my example, and what I discovered is this little dash missing. Well, again, it seems like it's a good thing to always refer back to the menu, making sure you're typing in the command correctly, and execute from there. So what we did is we used the same scan with the OG option. It's just the difference is that what we needed to do is have space, dash, space, and then the actual target. So because we're using this greppable format, what's happening here is, let's execute it. Let's see, give an example. So what we're doing is we're using port 80, okay, and then after port 80 we're gonna do dash OG space. We're gonna do our IP, in this case, we're just gonna do 21 and 22. and we're gonna do send the information to output 2. Okay, output 2, and we're gonna run. It's gonna take some time. Oh, it looks like I have OG twice. How about this? Okay, so we're gonna go like this. That should take a little bit of time. And let's go and cat output 2. So in this case, it looks like the command is not working for, oh, it looks like host is up. It gives me this information, host 2 is up. Notice the format. Everything seems like almost, same line. It's on one very big line. Let's actually open it up and see what that looks like. So if we navigate to Places, Computer, and then from here open up the file system, then we go to the root, and then we look into output, and we call it output 2. This is what it looks like. Okay, it's really like one long line telling me all this information, open port and so on. So the advantage of using this format is we can do cat output2.txt, and then we can use grep I, and then we can specify what we're looking for, open ports. Okay, so anything that says open. So these particular ports are open. When we look this, open, open, open. So all of the information just with one command, we can see the ports that are open. Okay. So it's a really, we can specify different keywords. If you're looking for a port, 110 for a particular port, it just gives us more flexibility with respect to the scan itself. Okay. Okay, so from here, let's go in and explore script scanning. So one thing we can do is, in order to get more information about Nmap script scanning, we can type in Nmap NSE usage. We hit enter, and then we go into the usage and examples for Nmap. Okay, this is the official manual for the Nmap script engine. We can see that reading through this information, there's different categories, script categories. So we have the authentication, broadcast, brute forcing, default. There are some options for discovery, denial of service, exploitation. It seems like there is a script for using a whois, a fuzzer, so fuzzy logic, identifying 0-day. There's some intrusive scripts that perhaps can discover open proxy and try to guess device SNMP community strings. There's some malware, so you can discover malware. Of course, there are save ones that really avoid denial of service and potentially crashing your system. And there's some vulnerability, so you can check for specific vulnerability. Okay, so in order to invoke the script, we can use the -sc or the -- script, file name, category, directory, expression type of format. Okay, so here we're given actually an example. So if you want to search for, get help for AFP, and this way you have quotes, so something that starts with AFP dash and then a wildcard and the discovery script. This is the information we're going to get. Okay, so using the trace option, it's kind of like a packet trace. We can do a script tracing. Every time you add a script, we can use the script update DB to make sure that the script is properly appended and shows in the database. Okay, so here's an example of using default script and save. SMBOS discovery. Okay, here is they give you a variety of examples how to use different scripts. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the command line. Let's fire up a new one, a new terminal, And then we're going to give example with nmap dash script. We're going to do help, and we're going to put in discovery. So we're getting help for discovery scripts, okay? We hit enter, and what happens? A lot of information flies by. So one thing we can do is you can pipe the more command and then review the information at one line, one screen at a time. So this is the beginning. So these are the we have a card sd-info. It's a save discovery. Here's information about the script itself. If you left click on it, we're going to be taken to the particular page for this script. It says open. Oh, we're supposed to be taken to, there we go, to the actual information for this script. It says user summary, okay, script arguments, example usage. It tells us that it retrieves information from a listening A-card SD daemon device, basically a service. Here's a simple output. Here's the example, okay. So this is with respect to information you can obtain from using the help menu, okay. So if we go down the list, we have the same thing. This is just a brief manual onto showing these different scripts and what they do, okay. So a variety of discovery scripts. So in this case, back RFI. So this is an interesting one. We're discovering if connects to a back RFI service and get us information about the host and the back RFI service itself. The extracted host information includes basic system setup, list of running processes, network resources, and shares. Okay. The banner script, it's a simple banner grabber which connects to an open TCP port and prints out anything sent by the listening service within 5 seconds. So using the queue, we are actually exiting the menu. Okay, so something else we can do is, for example, we'd like to get help regarding a particular script. So if we do nmap, it looks like I lost my ability to type into the screen. Okay, talking to myself, please don't mind me. Nmap, here we go. Nmap, there's the script. In this case, we're going to look up help information about something that starts with FTP. Okay, so again, there is a lot of information that's displayed. Actually, not too much. In this case, seems like it's just enough that we can scroll through. Of course, you can always pipe the more command and go screen at a time, line at a time. So anything that starts with FTP, and then after this it doesn't matter. It's a wild card. So we have anonymous. So default authentication safe checks if an FTP server allows anonymous login. Okay, FTP bounds, FTP brute. This is an intrusive brute force. Okay. And then it has a variety of different ones. Pro FTPD backdoor, so it's intrusive malware vulnerability. Test for a presence of FTP backdoor reported by a particular CVE. Okay, so we have a variety of things. So let's perhaps use the FTP anonymous script and see what actually it does. So if we go in and we hit enter and we type in nmap script and then FTP anon, and then let's launch it against our target. And it looks like it didn't provide a whole lot of results. So in this case, we executed the FTP anonymous against the 10.10.1.22, and this is the information we got. Well, it looks like it's not susceptible to anonymous login, but let's make sure that we executed the command correctly. So we're going to go back to Nmap script. We're going to do help. We're going to do FTP anon. Okay. So this is the help menu. And then from here, we're going to right click, open a link. We're going back to the command line. We're checking the usage. It looks like the command is different. Okay. But let's take a look. And here's the anticipated output if this anonymous login is allowed. Okay, so -sv -sc. Let's copy this. So highlight and copy. So simply drag over this line of text, right click and copy. We're going to come back here, right click and paste. Okay, specifying our target, and let's see if there's a difference in the syntax. Waiting for this to complete. Anytime now. Okay, so let's look into the information. It discovered FTP and gave us information about MySQL auto commit. But really didn't give us information about that particular FTP, whether or not it's anonymous. Okay, so it looks like the way we executed initially, it was the same way as if we would have executed with this script command. And the difference using the second time around is just that we're telling it to use the script, because by default all scripts that we're appending and trying to check for include this anonymous FTP. So that was the difference. In here we just selected this particular script. In here the -sc basically indicates do a version scan, use all scripts that are known, and because the FTP anonymous was part of it, it should have showed the results. Both scans, this was more selective, this is more inclusive, did a lot more things, but the results were the same. So in other words, we could have used this in our example, or the way that I did it initially here. Okay, so let's go in and experiment with adding a new script. Let's look into an example and go in and download a particular script. So let's go to open up Google, and we're gonna look for Computec Projecte Volscan. Okay, so what we're doing is you're going to Computec Projecte Volscan. And we actually need this URL right there. So I'll just simply right-clicked. And this will open up this particular script, okay? So this script was designed by, I think this was a German company, vulnerability research company. And what we'll do first is download the script itself. It's in a tar.gz format, 8.2 megabytes. And what this particular script does is it goes in and scans a particular target using different predefined reference databases for known vulnerabilities based on the services that are running in the operating system. So we have common vulnerability exposure spreadsheet, exploit database spreadsheet, open VAS, open source vulnerability database, skip vulnerability database, security focus, security tracker, and X-Force. So all of these CSV files are essentially, if we open up, I just downloaded one of them. These are references with, again, matching that there is a webmaster PHP password disclosure. So what this script is going to do is going to find out, and it's going to say, hey, there is a PHP running. And because there's PHP running, I'm going to cross-reference. I'm going to dip into this database called exploitDB, and I'm going to tell you that this exploitDB ID 31147 may be applicable for your target. And what this is doing is giving you suggestions that you can probably explore this vulnerability. It's really matching the discovered service and version of it with potential vulnerabilities. So it's expanding your attack surface, okay? And it's based on a variety of databases, as I showed you. It's exploitDB, it's OpenVAS, it's open source vulnerability database, and so on. And this script makes all that hard work for us. So when we're hitting a brick wall, there's no more opportunities for exploring. This particular script can help us expand our attack surface and look into additional areas. So let's go ahead and download it. We're going to click Save, and we're going to choose where to save it. It looks like my default location. I've done this before, so what we're going to do is we want to save, if you remember by default, all the Nmap scripts are located in User, Share, Nmap, and then Scripts. So what we're going to do is we're going to save to that location. In this case, I'm going to be asked to replace. You may not be asked that. So I'm going to replace it. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I can use the GUI, or I can use tar to extract it. If you're using tar, all you got to do is use tar with ZXVF, and then navigate to User, Share, Nmap, and then it was script, and then it was vulnscan. What was the name of the file? It was nmap nsc. And then it's going to extract the contents of this folder. We're going to go through and use the GUI. So we're going to go to Computer, and that should open up sometimes. So we're finding the user USR directory. From here we're going to Share. From Share we're going to Nmap. And what I'm doing is I'm quickly typing in on my keyboard Nmap. So if I start here, I select just a random folder. On my keyboard I type in Nmap, and what it does, it directly takes me to that folder. It's just a quick way to search for what you're looking for. So if I start here, I go in, it looks like I hit the backspace, so I went back. Need to rebrowse to the right place. And then I'm looking for Nmap. Oh, I need to go to Share, and then I need to look for Nmap, and then I need to go into Scripts. From Scripts, here is the Nmap NSC. Okay, I have multiple copies. So what we're going to do is we're going to open with Archive Manager, and then we will select the extraction location. Okay, we're gonna hit extract because we are in that folder. I'm gonna put it into a folder called vulnerability scan and then show files. Okay, so we're inside the scripts folder, vulnerability scan, and it looks like I extracted it twice. So you're only gonna have the one vulnerability scan folder, okay? This could be simply trashed. So this is what you should be seeing, scripts vuln scan, and then all that information inside the vuln scan, okay? So from here, we have extracted this script scan, okay? And then what we need to see is looking into the folder, and we need to have the vuln scan NSE. We need to move that file. We can simply right click and cut it back to the scripts. So right click and paste. Again, make sure the script is selected. Paste. I'm going to replace it. You shouldn't be asked this because yours doesn't exist. So vulnscan.nsc now is in this folder. And now what we're going to do is we can execute the update db. So nmap script update db, updated successfully, and now we can actually go in and execute this script. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is we are going to append, so nmap dash, we need to specify script, and now here is how we can use a particular script that we've downloaded. We can use the equal. We're going to say vulnscan.nsc dash sv, for version scan, syn scan against our target 22. Then we're going to append the results to a file called test CSV. And let's see if this works. So it looks like the script is now found. So let's find out why is this. Oh, I think I know. So the actual script name is not vulnscan, it's a vulscan. It's actually highlighted right here. So an operator error, and then let's see, after removing the n, if the script will work. Taking time, that's usually a good indicator. Again, what it's doing at the moment is using this vulnerability scan.nsc, which we don't want to cancel. It looks like I froze up. I was trying to open it up as it's running. Probably not the wisest idea. And what I was trying to do is show you that right now it's using this vulnscan.nsc, and what is going on? It looks like my command completed, and it was this command, so a little timeout difficulty with my virtual machine, and now here we're back. So it was using the vulnscan.nsc script with version scan, with syn connect, or request for just sending a syn TCP flag to the destination, and we are outputting the results to test.csv. Oh, by the way, if we use a single quote, we're outputting the results. If we're using like this, we're appending the results to an existing file. So we're adding to the file. So let's go in and review into the root directory what information is provided. So we're going to use the graphic user interface to open up the file with a CSV reader and find out what information is presented. The way I know where the file is, we're going to print working directory root. If we do list, there should be a test.csv file right here. Okay, so that's why I know where to browse and look. The root directory is right there, and then we're going to call test. I clicked on the wrong thing, so let's go back to file and root. And then from here find out the test CSV. There we go, before any more happy clicks. So we have the option to open them with LeafPad, or in this case I have LibreOffice. I think by default it's going to be LeafPad, so let's see if we can open it up with that and see what information is provided. So again, the reason I open it up with LeafPad is I think this is by default what's going to be included into Kali, and perhaps what you should be seeing on your screen at the moment. So let's go through the scan. What's happening here is the scan, this particular script discovered port 21 TCP, it's open. It's an FTP service, this is the version, and then notice the results. Okay, so it found a reference in the skip vulnerability database. This is the reference, and it found out that there is a particular buffer overflow for this version. Okay, so anything that matched version 1.3 could be a potential match. So these are potential vulnerabilities that your system, the service that we have on the target system could be susceptible to. The MITRES, Common Vulnerability Exposure, also found some matches, and it looks like they may be different than the first reference database. So what this does is, again, expands our attack surface, and it shows us that, hey, you know, these are things that you may be able to leverage. An exploit database, well, these are available exploits. So these are publicly available exploits that we can potentially leverage to either discover more vulnerabilities or potentially exploit our target. Okay, the same thing for FTP. It's leveraging the skip vulnerability database, the MITRE-CV, the OSVDB, just a variety of references. For each service that's discovered, it found several references that you can use and explore to see if you can take advantage of any of them. Security focus, it goes into only one security tracker, multiple. So again, it's a neat utility that allows you to expand your attack surface horizons. So this was, in a nutshell, demonstrating the usage of Nmap, leveraging some of the more advanced scripts, going into and using different command options with different scan type to help you hopefully understand the different power and the need to pay attention when you're specifying these Nmap options. Based on the options you provide, you're going to get different results. And Nmap can be a very, very useful utility. Thank you.